Yeah.
Do you mind just starting at the beginning and talking us through the Huntington experience?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So it's almost been 1 year now. It was
Yeah,
April
it's
21st of, yep,
hard to
2022.
believe it's that it, in a way that it's already been a year, that it's only been a year. It's
I
like
know.
a lot has
Yeah,
happened in a year.
totally. It's like, yeah, exactly what you just said. It's in a lot of ways, it's been the longest year of my life. And in a lot of years, or a lot of ways, it's been the fastest year of my life. It's definitely been the most intense year of my life in like mentally and physically and just like, yeah. Yeah. So April, last year, April of 2022, I went to climb the Harvard route on Mount Huntington, which climbs this really beautiful arête along the west face of Mount Huntington. And I'd always wanted to climb in the Alaska Range. And I'd been to the Alaska Range once before, maybe in like 2010. It's just, I would just get taken to other places, like, you know, training for somewhere else or with work or something like that. I never really made it to the Alaska Range, but kind of everything lined up. And I made it there last year. And I'd always wanted to climb Mount Huntington. It's a super beautiful mountain. Have you climbed Mount Huntington, Alex? Did
I
you?
tr- I, I try to avoid snowy mountains.
Didn't you do a trip there? Didn't you go to Alaska like with your
Yeah,
non
I've climbed in
and
the Alaska Range. Yeah, we only climbed in the Ruth Gorge though. So we
oh,
climbed the Harvard route on Mount Dickey, which is funny because the same guys from Harvard put up,
put up that
Harvard
route?
routes on multiple mountains, but
Yeah,
we climbed a different Harvard route.
yeah, yeah, totally. Anyway, I think you would like the Harvard route if you ever get, excited to go. You should
Nah,
give it a go.
I gotta say, yeah. Well, let's hear the rest of your story, but I feel like it doesn't really sell me on the Harvard route.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So yeah, so I partnered up with my friend Priti Wright out of Seattle, and we made plans
Yeah,
to.
how do you know? How do you know Preeti?
I just know her
As a total
through.
aside.
Yeah, I just know her through the climbing community. We'd actually never climbed together before this trip,
Hmm.
which, like some people are like, never go on an expedition with someone you don't know or something like that. But I find that sometimes that works out pretty well, especially if your goals are aligned, and she had a lot of experience. She has a ton of experience climbing big
Hmm.
routes in Alpine. And so I wasn't worried at all about that. And um for me, like with my personality, like I feel like I can get along with almost anyone. I don't know. I think that's like a nursing trait too. I'm like, it has to be like really something like really messed up for me to like get upset in a climbing partnership. I'm like, whatever. Some people are so particular. I'm like, you just
Hmm.
be
Hmm.
particular. I could care less. So anyway, we met up and so we were kind of like watching the weather and flew in, met in Talkeetna. We had super good high pressure system and flew into the Tokusina Glacier like right away and set out to climb. And we were the first team. There was a team that was in there like maybe 2 days before us that had climbed like the lower section of the route, but they bailed because there was too much snow and the conditions were like, it was early season Alaska, so a lot of snow, kind of like opening the route for the year to say. So like clearing out the snow, like figuring out where the anchors are. It's always easier if you like go up a big alpine route like after someone else has done it, right? And they're like the trail's broken, like you can see where the anchors are, all that kind of stuff. So we were kind of the first team out there on the mountain for that season, and we set out, and it's a really interesting route to me. That's why I'd always wanted to climb it. It kind of goes through, the lower section is snow up to some really, really beautiful mixed climbing. Right. It's like in the world of mixed climbing, it's moderate, but it's also like you're on a big mountain and it just depends on what the conditions are. And that season there wasn't actually a lot of ice. So it was more just like full on kind of dry tooling. So you're climbing like M6, M7. And yeah, we were just moving through, and it was slower. The climbing was a fair bit slower, I think, just because of the conditions, so much snow and just really tedious climbing. But we kept moving, and we were making pretty good time, and eventually made it up to the summit uh, on the 21st of April, and came back down. Started coming back down the route, like a lot of reclimbing, down climbing, that kind of thing. So there's not a whole lot to rappel off of up there. So you're oftentimes just like backtracking what you are doing. And then you end up rappelling down the West Face Couloir, which is a series of a lot of rappels. I don't know, it's probably like 20 rappels of just V threads in this kind of like chute of ice. There's a lot of overhead danger above you, like rockfall and stuff like that, coming down just a chute. So it's pretty focused on getting down the mountain and making sure that we don't get hit by anything. And then you kind of come out onto this snowfield, and you have to navigate your way over this big Berkshire, and that's kind of like the last crux of the route. So you like rappel down onto the snowfield, but then down at the bottom of the snowfield, there's like this giant Berkshire that you have to get yourself over. But it's kind of wild because you can't really see it because you're like coming down from above it. So that took a little bit to navigate and figure out. And eventually we made it back down to base camp. And it's always interesting for me to tell this story because it's not like we didn't like have an epic on the mountain. And I ended up with this like really life-changing injury. It's almost like it'd be, I don't want to say better if I was like, oh, like this terrible thing happened on the mountain and we got stuck up high and, I got frostbite on my toes. And then I had to get them removed. But that wasn't the case. What had happened was while we were climbing, my feet had gotten really cold, kind of without me knowing it, which I also sounds really crazy because it's like, how don't you know your feet get cold? But with that, like I've also had, significant frostbite before on my feet. And what I learned through this event that I've been dealing with for the past year was that when you have previous cases of frostbite, oftentimes your feet lose that sensation or the ability to tell how cold they are. And while we were climbing, it was pretty cold. It's like -20 Fahrenheit, and just kind of dealing with all the things that you're dealing with while alpine climbing, that kind of like focus that you have. And I guess I'm used to suffering in this way that we just talked about earlier. So I didn't realize like exactly how cold my feet were. And when we got back to base camp, I pulled off my boots, and right away I could tell that my feet were like discolored. They had that kind of like whitish color to them. And I've had that before on my feet, and they really just need to like get warmed up and rehydrate yourself and kind of just reverse all the things that you put yourself through on the mountain. And usually they warm up and everything's fine. And we got back down to base camp. It was pretty late when we got down, and I, got in the sleeping bag, and Priti was, bringing me hot water, that kind of stuff. And that night, as we were back at base camp, the weather window, which had been like splitter the whole time we were climbing, it was cold, but like clear blue skies, just totally shut down. And a huge storm came in, and we just, got shrouded in by all the clouds. When I woke up the next morning, I, pulled off my down booties or whatever and looked at my feet, and they were very discolored and had huge blisters on them. And I knew right away that we needed to get out. So we called this like through the inReach. We notified Talkeetna Air and talked to Paul, and he tried to fly in to pick me up, but because it was so shrouded in with clouds and all that, he couldn't land. So subsequently, we ended up spending another 2 days out on the glacier, and my feet just progressively got worse. And I couldn't get out because it was like a full-on storm. And on the Tocasetina Glacier, it's super tight. Like the mountains are really close in. So for them to land the plane, they have to have really good visibility. And I could hear him flying over, but he couldn't land. So by the time I was able to get out and get to the hospital in Anchorage, there wasn't really anything that they could do.
Did you know as you were waiting in the tent that it was all going downhill for your poor feet?
No, I didn't. I for me, even being a nurse or being a healthcare worker, I haven't like dealt with a lot of, I don't like see frostbite in the hospital, especially in Oakland. I think I saw it like once, I think maybe I saw it once in my life, and it was in the Oakland ER, and it was this poor homeless man who had like taken a Greyhound bus or from like Minnesota or something and somehow ended up in the ER in Oakland. That was the first time I'd ever seen frostbite. But no, I didn't even like in the tent. I knew it was bad, but I didn't like think that I was gonna like lose my toes. You know what I mean? I wasn't like, oh, this is because my brain at the time too, and I didn't think I was gonna lose my toes even for like, I think I had my first, or I had my first surgery May 25th. So even for the month after that, I was like, I'm not going to lose my toes. I'm going to do whatever I can to save my toes and, try whatever I can do to help them. I really, even until it was probably to like May 20th or something, I really, that wasn't like a reality for me.
Man, you posted some pictures though of your feet all black and purple and blistered. And surely when you saw them looking like that, I mean, like basically at what point did they look that bad? Because you must have known that terrible things had happened to your toes at that point, because anyone that sees the picture is like, oh my God, that is so bad.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I still was like, that's not going to happen. I know that
Yeah,
sounds like
it still feels like
denial.
it's still part of you, I guess. And you're like, you know what? I
Yeah,
will heal.
I
You're
will
like, they'll be
heal. I was
fine.
like,
Yeah, but I think to
yeah,
any
yeah,
outside observer is like, oh my God, those are dead. So,
yeah,
but I guess it still feels like your body.
totally. I guess like what had happened was I immediately went into like, I'm like, my toes are going to be okay. So I did like 40 treatments of hyperbaric oxygen, which is like, they put you into this tube and they increase the atmospheric pressure to like, and then they give you 100% oxygen. And what it does is it bypasses your red blood cells and can like get oxygen into your tissues without having to rely on your red blood cells. And a lot of people use it for like wound healing. There's a lot of research for it helping with like autism and these uh, problems that people are having with their brain, with their body. There's all this kind of like out of the box research that's happening with the hyperbaric oxygen treatment. And there's a small bit of research that has proven that it has helped with frostbite. So I was doing that. And at first, like within the first probably like 10 treatments, like they started to look better. And I was like, holy shit, this is working. Like this is going to work. Like things are going to be okay. And then there was like this drastic, it went from like, it's better to like black. Like, yeah, it was, yeah, they got really bad. But I think I like had that hope, right? It was like, oh, they're going to get better. And then they like got worse. But I was like, they can get better again. Because that's like how I feel like as humans, most humans, like we want to get better, right? Like we want to like heal ourselves. And I saw like, I don't know, 3 or 4 different surgeons, and 4 of them were like, you need to get your toes taken off. And I'd be like, fuck you. Like, fuck you. That's not happening. Fuck off. Like, you're not cutting off my toes. Right. And like throw them. I've never been like this really like mean person. And my poor mother was with me, and I said this, like, I don't know, wherever I was. And I was like, get the fuck out of my room. You're not cutting my toes off. Because I just like wanted this information from them that it's like, I only wanted to hear that they would get better or don't talk to me at all kind of thing, which is not my personality. And then I saw this one surgeon, I was trying to do these dressing changes or whatever. And I was seeing this surgeon, and it was this military surgeon. And he just like had the right words for me at the time. And he was like, he knew I was a nurse. So he was like, if you saw this on someone else, like if you walked into your patient's room right now and their feet were black, you know what that means. And like, I had to like remove myself, you know what I mean? I had to like remove myself from my body and be like, this is what it is. And he was like, you have to do this, because if you don't, like, it's going to get worse, and it can like get into your foot, and we'll have to take more, like an infection can get into more of your foot, and we'll have to take more of your foot off. And that just like resonated with me where I was just like, and then I went from like, get them the fuck off, like take them off. Like, can we do it tomorrow? Because I knew he was right. And I didn't want to risk having to like lose more of my foot. So
So was that the moment where you realized that you were going to have to lose some toes?
yeah, that was the moment was with this military surgeon at the Frostbite Center in Denver. Yeah. Up to then I was like fully that literally was like probably like May 20th. I just wouldn't let it go into my brain. I was in like I just got like obsessive with like doing the hyperbaric oxygen. Like my diet was like I just like obsessed on things that I could control, right? Like I was taking
Of
all these
course.
supplements. I was like,
But that's the classic thing though, where you're like, I'm taking my B12 supplements. I'm sure it'll get better, and you have this dead, rotting wound on the ends of your feet. And you're like,
that's
oh, it's weird that
exactly
my
yeah.
B12 supplements didn't help.
I
You're
was like,
like,
maybe if I take more vitamin C, like everything will be fine. It was like whatever I could. I'm like, I should drink, 5 liters of water a day instead of three, or like just this, like, I don't, that's what I could control. Right. So that's what
and
I did.
and so what was the extent of the injuries? How many toes? Which feet? Can you just explain what exactly happened?
Yeah. So I ended up, May 25th was my first surgery and they took off all of my toes on my right foot. So it looks like that basically. I have like a quarter of a baby toe. It's like, yeah, it's like a little toe.
Is it worth keeping a quarter of your baby toe? is it
Well, okay, so it's funny
is it
that you
not
asked
better just to
that.
go sort of clean shaven? Just take them
You,
all.
Alex, you should be a surgeon. I'm telling you. So okay, that was another thing with them, with the medical team. They were like, the best way to do this is to take it all because they're like people who we've done this with before. Usually it's like not that people get frostbite and like lose their toes, but oftentimes like people with really bad diabetes who don't take care
Mhm.
of themselves, they end up having to lose a lot of their feet. So this is a very similar injury to that. And they're like, the best is to like make it flat all the way across because then you're not going to have any problems with like the residual limbs or whatever. And I'm like, fuck no. Sorry, I'll quit saying fuck on here too. That's not nice. I was like, hell no. If it's not dead, like you're going to leave it on my foot. And they're like, okay, okay. So I have that little toe. And they were right. It hurts all the time. They should have took it off. But it's still there. And it just like get like all my weight, like now on my foot. If I do anything, like I just started running again and climbing on the mood board and stuff like that. It just gets like smashed, like that little tiny, it just like all my weight goes there and it's really sensitive, right? As where if they would have took it off, it probably wouldn't feel like that. But that was what I wanted. But I do feel like maybe it helps with balance in some way. Like I can move it, so it's like I can move that first joint in my foot and I can move the small part of my baby toe. So I feel like it does do something.
And
And then
and so that was basically all the toes on the right foot. And what about the left
yeah.
foot?
And then I was still into like saving my toe on my left foot, my big toe. I really wanted to keep one big toe because your big toe like does so much, right? Like it's just so important. And the thought of losing two of them was just like so daunting to me. I like couldn't deal with it. And the toe on my left big toe was like it would get better and then it was like getting worse and then it got like the ones on my right foot were super gnarly. They were like black and they were like oozing and like drippy. They looked so gnarly. They're disgusting. And then the big one on my left foot was more like dry and it just seemed like it had like it was like dead skin and I had this like dream, I guess, that like all the dead skin would fall off and there'd be like this perfect normal toe with pink nail polish underneath, right? Like just exactly how I went in. And so I kept it and I kept trying to save it and do everything I could for it. It also wasn't as big of a risk of infection as my right toe. So they were like, okay, you can wait that one out and see how it goes. And then it just wasn't getting any better and it started getting worse. So that one, it's like half, it's kind of like, it's like that. So I do have they wanted to take the whole thing. And I said no. So I have half of it, which I think does help quite a bit, especially with climbing. Like that ability to like toe in, it's kind of like all your big toe in a way. So I still have the ability to do that um on my left foot. So I'm very grateful to have kept half of it. It's like I guess a little, it's like a third of it. Yeah.
Though I mean, this is really neither here nor there, but can you really still toe in like that? Because if it's shorter than your other toes, then isn't it your other toes that are sort of driving the point of your shoe anyway?
I know, but I feel it like pull. I can feel it
Like you feel
pull.
the muscles. I guess that's the
Yeah.
main thing, is that if you feel like you're engaging it,
Yeah.
that's. I'm actually I'm bouldering with Tommy right now. I'm
Mhm.
staying in Font with Tommy, and you
Yeah.
see like when he's really trying, like the nub engages on things, and it's like
Yeah.
he's been using these big open-handed slopers, and it's like enough that even his nub is getting worn down. Like his skin is so worked on all his fingers, but then even the nub is kind of raw, and you're like, oh wow, even though there's only like a tiny little fragment of a finger still there, it's like you're still engaging and it's still touching rock and it's still getting worked. It's like, oh,
Totally.
every little bit helps.
That's why I was like, I want to keep as much as I can. So I'm happy. Even like that little part of my baby toe, I feel like it just helps with, I could see if I like if I just like, wasn't as active as I am, like maybe you're just like, whatever, just take it off. But I still want to like do things or try.